Her bravery was inspirational, extraordinary. She received the George Cross. She would never accept any recognition for her special contribution without reminding us that she was the face of a much wider body of operations.
The palace did not tremble because a tiara changed hands. It trembled because Princess Anne made certain everyone understood what that tiara meant. In one decisive gesture, she placed the Queen's pearl tiara before Kate, rejected Camilla's claim request, and turned a private family dispute into a royal reckoning. What should have been a quiet inheritance matter became the moment Windsor stopped pretending nothing was wrong. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Anne entered that private royal meeting with no softness in her face and no hesitation in her hands, because she knew the case she carried was no ordinary ornament. A royal meeting simply means a closed family discussion where senior members handle matters too sensitive for public display. And this one had been arranged because the Queen's pearl tiara had become the center of a battle no one wanted to admit existed. The tiara, a jeweled headpiece worn on formal royal occasions, carried more than pearls and metal. It carried memory, loyalty, rank, and the shadow of the late Queen, whose private wishes still held power long after her death. Kate felt the weight of that truth before anyone spoke. She understood that Anne was not offering her decoration. She was offering trust. She was offering continuity. She was placing protection around the future Princess of Wales. At the exact moment, Camilla believed the claim should have been hers. Camilla did not receive the refusal as a minor disappointment. She received it as a wound, delivered in front of people who understood every hidden meaning. For weeks, the Queen Consort had believed her position beside the king gave her priority access to the peace, and she had allowed that belief to harden into expectation. Anne broke that expectation without raising her voice. She made it clear that Camilla's claim request would not be honored, that Kate would receive the Queen's pearl tiara, and that the decision rested on strict personal authority. That phrase meant Anne was acting not as a casual relative, but as someone entrusted with guarding a sensitive family legacy. The silence after the refusal was brutal. Kate looked stunned, almost afraid of the honor being placed before her, because success inside the monarchy often comes wrapped in someone else's suffering. Camilla absorbed the humiliation, but she could not control the room, and that loss of control cut deeper than the rejection itself. Then Anne revealed the part no one could ignore. Her decision was supported by a sealed instruction connected to the late monarch's private wishes. And suddenly, the real question was not why Kate had been chosen, it was why Anne believed Camilla should never have the tiara at all. But before the room could understand the full meaning of Anne's decision, every person present had to face what this tiara represented to them personally. Every royal in that room saw a different truth resting inside the pearl tiara. To Kate, it was a burden wrapped in honor. To Camilla, it was a symbol of recognition she believed she had earned. To Anne, it was a promise that had to be guarded. And to William, watching in silence, it was proof that the past had finally returned to judge the present. She lowered her hand onto the tiara case without opening it again. The Princess of Wales is the senior royal woman expected to become queen in the future, a role carrying responsibility far beyond titles, and she understood that accepting the gift could easily be mistaken for celebrating someone else's loss. That fear mattered because she had spent years avoiding even the appearance of taking anything from the Queen Consort. Instead of feeling victorious, she felt the weight of expectation pressing against every decision she would make from this moment forward. Camilla stood perfectly still, but inside, she was fighting disappointment that refused to fade. She believed her years beside Charles had earned the right to claim important royal heirlooms, and those treasured objects mattered because they represented belonging inside the family as much as history itself. The Queen Consort could feel that the refusal was no longer private. Every quiet glance in the room reminded her that Anne's decision had changed how everyone would remember this day. William noticed Kate's hesitation immediately. The prince offered no dramatic speech and made no attempt to celebrate. Instead, he met her eyes with a calm expression, that quietly said she would not carry this burden alone. His silent support gave her enough strength to keep her composure, even while she wondered how the decision would affect every future appearance. Anne watched them both carefully. She was not trying to embarrass Camilla or reward Kate. During a documented family record reviewed before the meeting, she explained that her responsibility was to protect what she believed the late queen wanted preserved for the monarchy's future. That explanation settled the room, but it did not erase the pain. Camilla heard every word and understood that the rejection had grown from conviction rather than anger, making it impossible to dismiss as emotion or impulse. Kate recognized the same truth, and her gratitude became quieter instead of greater. William also realized Anne had reached this decision long before anyone entered the room. Whatever had convinced her had clearly changed everything, and the deeper everyone looked into Anne's certainty, the clearer it became that this decision had not begun with the tiara. It had begun with a private wound no one had forgotten. The battle over the Queen's Pearl Tiara did not begin in the room where Kate received it. It began months earlier, during a private memorial ceremony inside Windsor, when Camilla reached for a place in royal memory that Anne believed was never hers to claim. That single moment hardened suspicion into certainty. From then on, Anne no longer saw a disagreement. She saw a line being crossed. Camilla had asked to wear the pearl tiara for the commemorative portrait, and the request landed like a crack through the silence. A private memorial ceremony is a closed remembrance held away from public crowds, meant to honor a royal life with family dignity, not public display. That mattered because the late Queen's memory was still tender, and every object linked to her carried a meaning bigger than beauty. The tiara was tied to loyalty, service, and the monarch's private circle, which meant wearing it in that portrait would not simply mark rank. It would suggest belonging at the deepest level. Anne heard the request and went still. She did not interrupt Camilla, but her face changed enough for Kate to notice. The Princess of Wales stepped back, not because she lacked courage, but because challenging the Queen Consort in that moment would have turned remembrance into open conflict. Kate felt uneasy, and that unease mattered, because she understood what Camilla seemed to be reaching for. Not pearls, not ceremony, but a place beside the late monarch's most protected memories. Anne saw it too, and to her, the request felt less like honor and more like possession. After the ceremony ended, Anne did not complain in public or accuse Camilla in anger. Through a documented custodial review, requested that same week, she asked for the tiara's file to be examined privately. A custodial file means the family record that explains who protects, uses, or inherits a royal object, especially when that object carries emotional history. That review revealed the detail that changed everything. A handwritten note connected to the Queen's preferences named Kate as the better symbolic guardian of the pearl tiara. Anne read that note more than once. She understood its force. Camilla may have believed the future claim would be simple, but Anne had already crossed into certainty. Kate did not know then how deeply the ceremony had shifted the ground beneath her. Camilla did not know Anne was preparing an answer long before the formal request arrived. So when Camilla finally moved from quiet expectation to formal demand, Anne did not hesitate. She brought the full weight of memory into the confrontation. There are moments in royal life when the loudest word is not shouted. It is delivered calmly, with witnesses watching and history pressing against the walls. When Camilla asked again for the Queen's pearl tiara, Anne did not soften the answer. She closed the file, looked across the table, and said no. Not later. Not under review, no. Camilla stared at her, as if the word had struck harder, because it had come without anger. Anne sat opposite her in that private palace room, while Kate remained close enough to feel trapped by the silence, and William watched every movement with careful control. A royal heirloom means a treasured object passed through the family because it carries history, not just value, and that mattered because the pearl tiara had become a test of who could be trusted with the late Queen's memory. Camilla argued that the Queen Consort should not be bypassed in such decisions. The Queen Consort is the King's wife, a public role that carries honor and visibility, and she believed that role gave her a rightful place in the line of access. Anne did not bend. She told Camilla that rank could not outweigh entrusted memory, and the room felt the force of it. Kate lowered her eyes, not from weakness, but from the terrible knowledge that Anne's protection had placed her at the center of another woman's humiliation. Camilla looked toward Charles, waiting for the king to intervene, waiting for him to soften the blow, but he gave her no rescue. His silence deepened the wound. Anne then opened the sealed guidance she had reviewed through a documented family archive account, making clear that the pearl tiara belonged with Kate's future role because it represented steadiness, restraint, and continuity. That guidance mattered because it turned Anne's refusal from personal opinion into guarded legacy. Camilla heard it and understood the request was not under discussion anymore. Kate understood it too, and gratitude mixed painfully with discomfort, because the gift now carried both honor and damage. William finally spoke, quietly but firmly. The prince said he supported Anne's judgment because the monarchy must protect trust, not reward pressure. Camilla absorbed that sentence like a second rejection. Anne did not look away. William did not take it back. Kate did not celebrate. The confrontation had exposed something far bigger than one tiara. When rank, emotion, and legacy collided, the true question became, who had the right to guard royal memory? But Anne's rejection was only the visible strike. Behind it stood a hidden structure of authority that Camilla had badly underestimated. Camilla believed the tiara could be claimed through position. Anne knew it could only be passed through trust. That difference changed everything. Beneath the surface of the royal family's polished silence, a custodial power had been moving carefully, quietly, and with absolute purpose. By the time the case reached the table, the outcome had already been shaped by one woman's refusal to let memory become currency. Anne had not walked into that meeting with a sudden opinion. She had walked in with control. The family custodian is the person trusted to protect sensitive royal objects and guide who may use them, especially when those objects carry private meaning. That mattered because the Queen's pearl tiara was not simply part of a glittering collection. It was tied to the late monarch's memory, future representation, and the quiet message the family wanted to send about duty. Charles understood that before Camilla did. The king read the file alone, turned one page, then set it down without speaking. His silence carried pain because he was caught between his wife's humiliation and Anne's authority. He knew Camilla wanted recognition, but he also knew Anne was not acting from bitterness. She was defending a framework already reviewed by senior aides, archive officers, and family advisors. Archive officers are staff who protect royal records, and their review mattered because it gave the decision weight beyond emotion. Anne stood firm because the inheritance framework, meaning the agreed structure for passing important family items, had placed the tiara in a special category. It was not listed as a casual ornament to be worn by rank alone. It was marked as a legacy piece connected to the monarchy's next chapter. Through a documented internal review completed before the meeting, Anne learned that Camilla's claim request had not weakened Kate's position at all. It had done the opposite. The request forced every hidden note, every private preference, and every old instruction back into the light, and each one pointed toward the future Princess of Wales. Camilla had believed pressure would open the door. Instead, pressure locked it. Anne refused to let personal disappointment overturn guarded memory, and Charles could not honestly challenge her without challenging the late Queen's wishes. That was the power behind the decision. Not noise, not revenge, not palace gossip. A quiet structure had moved beneath everyone's feet, and Camilla had stepped onto it too late. And when the palace doors closed behind the decision, Camilla was left to face the first consequence of a future that no longer bent toward her. The rejection did not end when Anne left the room. It followed Camilla into the silence afterward. For the first time, the queen consort was not merely denied an object, she was denied the story she wanted that object to tell. The pearl tiara had gone to Kate, and with it went something Camilla had fought years to secure: the feeling that the family had finally accepted her without reservation. Camilla stood alone after the meeting, removing her gloves slowly, one finger at a time, staring at the empty space where the tiara case had been. That empty space mattered, because it marked the first visible consequence of Anne's decision. It was not just an absence on a table. It was a message that the queen consort could no longer shape every symbol around her own place in the family. Charles entered only briefly, and the king knew at once that no ordinary comfort would be enough. He wanted to ease her pain, but he could not give her the certainty she wanted, because Anne's authority had already closed the matter. Camilla looked at him, waiting for a promise, but he gave only silence, and that silence felt like abandonment. An upcoming royal appearance, meaning a planned public event where senior royals are seen representing the monarchy, had to be quietly altered, because the tiara would not be available to her. That mattered because public appearances are where royal meaning becomes visible, and now Kate's new role would be seen even before anyone explained it. The Princess of Wales would have to prepare to wear a piece filled with loyalty, memory, and danger, knowing every glance would search her face for triumph. William understood that danger. Through a recorded private conversation with a senior aide, the prince admitted he feared the gift could be viewed as a public rebuke, unless handled with care. He wanted Kate protected from the cruelty of comparison, because her honor had been born from Camilla's humiliation. Palace aides began rewriting seating, wardrobe, and announcement plans around the new reality, and every small change made the rejection feel more permanent. Camilla's anger slowly weakened into sadness, as she understood the truth she had tried to avoid. Anne's refusal had not been procedural, it had been personal, rooted in memory, loyalty, and a judgment the queen consort could not overturn. Charles watched her absorb that pain, and he looked older in the silence he had chosen. But the true meaning of the gift only became clear when Kate faced Anne alone and asked the question no one else dared to ask. Away from the pressure, away from rank, away from every watching face, Kate finally asked Anne why. Not why Camilla had been rejected, not why the tiara had been removed from dispute. Why her? In that private moment, the gift stopped being a weapon in a royal struggle and became something far heavier, a message from one generation of women to the next. Kate sat with the tiara case closed between them, and for the first time since the decision, she let the burden show. The Princess of Wales is the woman expected to stand beside the future king and one day carry the highest public role in the family, and that mattered because every symbol placed near her would now speak before she did. She told Anne she feared the gift would make her look triumphant when she only felt responsible. She did not want Camilla's pain to become her crown. She did not want the queen consort's rejection to be remembered as her victory. Anne listened without interrupting, because she understood the danger in that fear. Then she told Kate the tiara was never meant to crown ambition. It was meant to honor steadiness. Through a recorded private conversation preserved in a family account, Anne revealed that the late queen had valued restraint more than visibility, and had believed Kate understood that quiet duty better than anyone around her. That revelation mattered because it changed the shape of the entire dispute. Anne had not chosen Kate to insult Camilla. She had chosen her to protect the monarch's idea of service from becoming a fight over status. Kate's eyes filled, but she did not break. She understood then that the pearls were not a reward. They were a test. Anne placed one hand near the closed case and gave her final instruction. Wear it not as victory, but as duty. Those words settled deeper than any formal command. Kate accepted the gift with humility, not celebration, and in doing so, she shifted the story away from rivalry and back toward responsibility. Anne saw that shift happen and knew the choice had been right. Kate no longer looked like a woman caught inside another person's humiliation. She looked like someone ready to carry a promise carefully, even if the world misunderstood it. But misunderstanding was already coming. Because once the public learned what had happened, no private explanation could protect the family from the storm beyond the palace walls. Yet no private explanation could stop the outside world from turning one pearl tiara into the most talked-about royal symbol of the year. By morning, the palace could no longer contain the story. What began as a private family decision exploded across Britain with the force of a coronation scandal. The Queen's pearl tiara, was no longer locked inside royal rooms. It was on front pages, in broadcasts, across dinner tables, and outside palace gates, where strangers gathered to decide what Anne's gesture really meant. Kate saw the first headline before anyone could soften it for her. One major newspaper carried her image beneath the words, "Pearls for the Future," while Camilla's rejected claim was framed as the royal blow no one expected. A coronation scandal means a public controversy tied to the symbols of monarchy. And that mattered because the tiara was now being treated not as jewelry, but as proof of who the family trusted to carry the next chapter. Outside Buckingham Palace, a crowd gathered with flowers, phones, and raised voices. Buckingham Palace is the monarchy's main working home in London, and what happens outside its gates matters, because public feeling often turns private royal decisions into national judgment. Some people praised Kate, saying Anne had protected the late Queen's legacy. Others argued Camilla had been publicly diminished in a way no consort should have to endure. The Queen consort watched the same coverage in silence, and every repeated headline made the rejection feel less private, less containable, and more permanent. Kate felt no triumph as the story spread. The Princess of Wales sat quietly as broadcasters called the gift a generational handover, meaning a symbolic passing of duty from one royal era to the next. That phrase should have sounded grand, but to her it sounded dangerous, because every compliment toward her seemed to deepen Camilla's wound. Through a restrained palace statement released that afternoon, officials emphasized continuity, service, and respect for the late Queen's legacy. The statement avoided blame, but it could not hide the truth. Anne had made a choice, and the world had understood it. Through a documented private response to senior aides, she refused to walk back the decision and made clear the tiara's future was settled. Camilla heard that finality and knew the public storm would not change the private verdict. Kate understood it too, and the honor felt heavier than ever. The noise outside grew louder, but inside Windsor, the real question became quieter and more painful. Not what the newspapers would say, not how broadcasters would frame it. What would the family accept when the shouting stopped? And as the headlines faded, one truth remained inside Windsor. The gift had not merely changed ownership, it had exposed the emotional order of the monarchy. In the end, the Queen's pearl tiara did what royal jewels so often do. It revealed what people tried to hide. It showed Anne's loyalty, Kate's burden, Camilla's wound, Charles's silence, and William's quiet choice. The monarchy survived the shock, but it did not emerge unchanged. Something had been settled, and everyone inside the family understood the verdict. Kate accepted the tiara privately, not with triumph, but with a solemn promise that made the room feel heavier than celebration ever could. The Princess of Wales held the closed case as if it carried a voice from the past, because the late Queen's memory was not just family history, it was the standard by which every future choice would be judged. That mattered, because Anne's gift had confirmed what the monarchy now needed most: service, restraint, and inherited trust. A guardian of a royal heirloom means the person trusted to protect and represent a treasured family object, and Kate became that guardian not because she demanded it, but because Anne believed she could carry it without turning it into a prize. Camilla faced the painful truth in silence. The Queen consort understood at last that position could open doors, but it could not force emotional acceptance from the family. Her claim request was closed, and the finality of it cut deeper than the refusal itself. Charles saw the damage clearly. The king understood that avoiding conflict had allowed the wound to grow, and his silence had become a decision of its own. He had tried to stand between loyalty to his wife and loyalty to the late monarch's wishes, but in the end, the room had chosen what he could not say aloud. Anne did not look cruel in that final moment. She looked like the guardian who made the choice others avoided. Through a documented family account recorded after the decision, she made clear that the tiara had never been about punishing Camilla. It had been about protecting memory from pressure. William watched Kate accept that burden and saw the future taking shape beside him. The prince understood that the next chapter of the monarchy had to be calmer, clearer, and less afraid of difficult truths. Kate's acceptance gave him that certainty. Camilla's rejection gave the family its boundary. Anne's authority was affirmed, and the Queen's pearl tiara became more than an heirloom. It became the line between rank and legacy. There was no need for another announcement, because by the time the pearl tiara rested with Kate, Windsor had already delivered its answer. Legacy belongs not to the one who demands it, but to the one trusted to carry it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.